Essentially, the whole idea behind ESLint is it's going to give you different warnings and errors inside of your code for different things that you do, such as defining a variable and not using it. For example, if we just come into here and I create a variable, let's just call it component. Actually, let's just call it test, and we'll just set it to high. You'll notice I get this red squiggly line that's saying, hey, this is declared but never read, and it's giving me a warning right here, and you can see it says ESLint and then the actual name of that error. And I can actually click on this, open this up, and if I bring it over, you can see it's going to give me a really long documentation of exactly what that specific error is, telling me exactly what I need to do. So that one in particular is right up here, and it tells you tons of information about how to fix it and what the error is. So there's different rules that ESLint has set up that are going to essentially lint your code and tell you if different things are not proper, like having a variable that you don't use is probably not a good idea, so it's saying that you should remove it or make sure you use it somewhere. Now, the one problem with ESLint is oftentimes it's a little bit too strict and it adds in extra rules that you maybe don't want, because by default, Vite has all of these different rules that it adds in, a bunch of different rules around React, and then just normal ESLint rules. But some of these rules, like I said, you may not want. One of those rules in particular, which I'm going to recommend that you actually disable, if we open up this component here, I know we haven't really talked much about components, but you're noticing I'm getting a little bit of a red underline. If I hover over this, you can see it says title is missing in prop validation, and then it's telling me this is a React prop types error. In this course, we're not going to be really doing much with TypeScript, which is the best way to do type validation inside of React. And the other alternative is something called prop types, which is not covered until much, much later in this course, and is really not that important because you should probably just be using TypeScript instead. But since we're not using TypeScript in this course, and we're not going to be using prop types because it's just an inferior thing compared to TypeScript, I recommend disabling this error. And the way that you disable errors inside of ESLint is incredibly easy. You just find the error you want to see, for example, this error, and you look and you'll see on the very right side, it'll say ESLint followed by whatever the name of the error is. In our case, the error is called React/prop-types. So we can go into our ESLint in this rules section. If you don't have this, just add it in yourself. And what you can do is you can just type in React/prop-types. We can put a colon, and then we can say what we want to do with that error. And there are three different options. The first is off, and that just completely removes the error. And as you can see, I no longer get an error for that. The second option is warn, and that's just going to give me a yellow warning as opposed to an actual error. And then finally, what it was already set to was error, which is going to give you that red squiggly line. So in our case, I would recommend just setting this one to off. Otherwise, you're going to get a bunch of errors that are going to come up for stuff that's really not super important at all. But again, you can play around with this as much as you want. Alternatively, you can use 0 to define off, 1 to define a warning, and 2 to define an error if you prefer to use that style syntax over the actual words. Now, if you don't actually like ESLint and you want to remove it, it's super simple. All you need to do is just go to your ESLint file, delete it, and now you don't have to worry about ESLint at all. And in your package.json, you may want to remove this line right here, which is actually doing your linting for you, and you can remove all the different dependencies for ESLint as well.